You're stuck in a cycle of constantly underestimating yourself and subconsciously seeking out the approval and permission of others to do what you want to do in your life because you currently have this one bad habit. A bad habit that has followed you probably for years now that you weren't even aware of. And I discuss not just what this particular bad habit is, but how to completely eradicate it from yourself in less than 20 minutes of a single video from my course, Self Belief 2.0. So please watch this lesson. It's very important that you do all the way to the end. And at the end of this lesson, I have a special gift for you. Enjoy.
Underestimation and asking for permission are symptoms, let's call them that. Symptoms of a bad habit. Now, what is that bad habit? A bad habit is called evidence based thinking. Now, we do live in a material world, a physical world, a world that is comprised of very cool things like matter and tangibles and things that we can interact with on a very physical level. And this is all good. This is all fine. This is all, good and dandy. We live in such a reality. The problem is we forget that we have a lot more influence over the reality that we live in than we'd like to remember. And in fact, ever since we were children, this lie has been hammered into our heads that our reality happens to us instead of the other way around, which is why the natural byproduct of this continuous misinformation is evidence based thinking, or EBT. Yes, EBT, very very well named. In America, EBT is the social program that provides a safety net of sorts for people that are low or no income. Right. So an EBT card is like these food stamps that people that I believe in England they're called people in council estates would get, from the government and would go and buy like groceries with and stuff like that. It's really a testament to brokenness and brokenness. And that exact same thing is how it works in real life. When you have EBT, evidence based thinking, you are mentally broke. No bullshit. No bullshit. Here's how it works. And here's why it's such a dangerous thing for you to move through the world like this. When you require evidence before you have the courage to move forward with anything, then all of your success in life, no matter what it is you're trying to gain success at, is completely dependent on whatever evidence you can find. And that's messed up when you realize that evidence in itself is completely subjective. Because again, it's based on your own perception of reality, and your perception is your reality, right? So the way you perceive things is how your reality shapes up. If you perceive reality wrongly for whatever reason, your perception of reality is not correct, then that incorrect reality becomes your reality. And so, if you need evidence before you can tell yourself, oh, okay, I know exactly what to do and how to do it, and your reality is not the correct one, or your reality is limiting in some way, then you're screwed. You're completely screwed. You'll continue to reinforce a cycle of self doubt and disbelief because that is all the evidence you see. And so it becomes a vicious, horrendous cycle that you're trapped in mentally, right? You don't want that for yourself. You don't want to be in this weird mental prison where everything you see is bad or not good enough or not solid enough evidence for you to use to move forward. And yet you're the one deciding to see it that way because again, your perception is your reality. That's how this works. Right? That's not even me trying to sound esoteric or anything. That's just real life. There's a lot of science to back that up. Let me tell you a weird story to teach you how this whole thing works, right? What happens when people are a slave to evidence based thinking. And the story isn't going to sound like it has anything to do with it, but I promise you, you're going to see evidence of EBT in the story. So in what year? 1954, I believe. That is a weird five. That looks more like an S. And not there we go. In 1954, there was this kid named Roger Bannister with two N's, I believe, and he was a British guy in Oxford University, right? He was a track star. That was his thing. He was a runner. He's a track star. Oh wait, hold on. I'm trying to draw. There we go. Aha! A nice little running man on the track, right? So this is him on the track. Ooh, nice. He's a runner. He's a track star. Something, 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 something. And I don't know the words of that song, but you guys probably do. So yeah, he was a track star who had just come off the Beijing. I said Beijing Olympics. That's embarrassing. Not the Beijing Olympics. The Helsinki Olympics, I believe it was the previous year, and he had failed. Right by you know all metrics, he had placed fourth and didn't medal, which is failure because what's the point of going to the Olympics if you don't medal, right? He ran the 1500 meters and he came in fourth, which is very disappointing for Roger. So he decided, well, I've got one more shot at this track and field thing before I graduate from my university and have to go be the doctor I'm actually studying to be, because yes, he was studying medicine. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to do something amazing, he told himself. I'm going to do something to leave my name in the history books forever. And that is running the 4 minute mile, or more specifically, running under 4 minutes for a mile. This was his goal now. This was his dream. This was what he was focusing his entire, you know, life and study into. Mind you, right after failing, like bombing at the Olympics, right? So what did he do? Let me draw him again. So, because I missed him already. Damn, all those track and field film I've watched has really come in handy with this stick figure. He's like perfectly running. So anyway, Roger decided he was going to train to run under 4 minutes. Now, mind you, I really want to make it very clear. I want to emphasize this point. Up until this point in history, it was impossible to run the 4 minute mile. No one had ever done it. And in fact, here's the craziest part: scientists themselves were like, yo, this is impossible. The human body cannot withstand the amount of stress it'll take to be able to do something that crazy and run that fast, right? Because you got to split the mile into four splits, right? For 100 meters. And the way the human body works, you kind of go down in not just energy, but your body begins to overheat and your muscles begin to be filled with lactic acid. You just get exhausted over time. So it's impossible to keep the same pace, especially if you're really fast, for a long period of time, especially not for 4 minutes, they said. Not for less than 4 minutes, right? Because after the first minute, you're already experiencing all the signs of lethargy, right? Your muscles are just breaking down on you. But Roger, our boy Roger, he was like, nah, I'm going to find a way to break this 4 minute mile. So he began to do a lot of training. At some point during this training, he was so sore and so tired, he decided, you know what? This record isn't going anywhere. I'm going to take some time off, some heavy time off, a lot of time off to really rest my body. He said, I'm going to rest my body. I'm going to rest my weary frame. And I'm going to come back to the track and continue my training. Guess what he noticed? After 3 days of rest, coming back to the track, not only did he improve tremendously with his speed and reaction time from the gun, right? He had also improved his time. All of a sudden, his splits were a lot faster. So he began to think to himself, there's a correlation between chilling out, taking a few days of rest, and improved athletic performance. He kind of stumbled into that, like, oh shit, okay. There's something here. So guess what he did? He said, okay, cool. If that's how it works, and for whatever reason, rest improves my athletic performance, then, well, I'm just going to rest some more. This is me trying to draw a bed and this is him in bed, and this is his bed frame, I guess. And I don't even know if I'm drawing this correctly, but yeah, he decides I'm gonna take more days to rest. By the time it came to the day where he actually wanted to attempt breaking that 4 minute barrier, he had rested for five. Damn, my fives need work. 5 days straight. 5 days. Which again, I gotta understand. This is 1954. This is the 50s. It was unheard of to rest that long before athletic performances. In fact, the idea of resting before performance was not even a thing at that point, right? It was like, get the fuck out of here. You need to be training up until the day of to keep your body sharp and warm and all that good stuff, right? Pause. Warm. Pause. Heavy pause. So that's what Roger did. Roger was like, okay, I'm gonna rest my ass off before the day of. And then guess what he did? Guess what our boy Roger did? Well, he broke that record. He broke the record and ran that 4 minute mile. Well, he ran 3:59.8 or something like that. It was just under 4 minutes, right? Shout out to Roger Bannister. Again, I'm gonna give you the name because shout out to him, Roger Bannister with two N's. Shout out to him. He ran that. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, "Well, that's a cool story, Jason. What the fuck does that have to do with underestimation and evidence-based thinking?" Very good question. Here's the answer to that question. Right after Roger, our boy, big R, right, big RB, had run that 4 minute mile and broken that record. Guess what happened? About 6 weeks later, some other motherfucker broke his record. I think the guy was from Sweden or something. I should probably use yellow to draw this guy. There we go. He was some Swedish guy. And then weeks after that, some Australian guy did it. Now this guy, he's definitely green because Australian, right? Howdy, mate, from down under. So weeks after Swedish guy, weeks after Australian guy, weeks after him, it was someone else. I think by the end of that year, 4 different people had broken that 4 minute mile record that apparently was so hard to break and impossible and heavily coveted. How interesting is that? All it took was our boy Big R, right, to break the record. And now all of a sudden, everyone figures out, oh, we can do it too. Why is that? Well, because they now had this thing called evidence. They had this thing called evidence. They realized, oh, running a 4 minute mile or under 4 minute mile is possible now. Because our boy, RB, did it. Right? And he's not even that good. He came in fourth at the Olympics and he's out here running a 4 minute mile. What the fuck? He sucks and he was able to do it. Man, if that bum can do it, I can do it. And that's how everybody did it. That record got broken damn near 100 times up until the current day, which I believe is now like 3 minutes and 40 something seconds. I can't remember who the last person to break it was. It's always fucking Reagan. I think it was Van Niekerk a few years ago, and then somebody else after him. Shout out to Van Niekerk, one of my favorite sprinters of all time. Anyway, the point is, all it took was our boy RB to break and bust open the floodgates. And now all of a sudden, everyone thinks it's possible. Now, what's the difference between RB and all those other people, right, that found out they could break the record? What's the difference between him and them? Well, simple. RB, right here, didn't need evidence to break the record. All he needed was something called internal validation. Internal validation. In this case, right, in the form of a strategy. That's all he needed. Everybody else, these fuckers right here, they needed external validation in the form of Roger doing it. And in this life, you're going to have to figure out which one you want to be. Do you want to be the person that can draw the strength from within? Or do you want to be the person that needs to look to others to figure out how possible it is for you? Do you need to look for others to gain permission from them to do what you want? Do you need to find evidence outside of yourself specifically? Right? We're talking about evidence-based thinking, right? Do you need to find evidence outside of yourself, EBT, to be able to now realize, okay, it's possible for me, and I can stop underestimating myself? Because that's why those two go hand in hand, right? Asking for permission and underestimation. Self underestimation happens, right, as a result of not giving yourself permission. That's really what it is. You underestimate yourself because you don't give yourself permission to overestimate yourself. Because here's the thing, any other one of those track and field guys that broke the record after Roger did, they could have been the first one to run that mile under 4 minutes, but they severely underestimated themselves. That's the issue. That's the point. Of all those people, our boy RB, big RB, was the only one that didn't underestimate himself. The only one. So how do you do that? How do you do what RB did? How do you do what our boy RB did? Well, it's very simple. You do exactly the same thing in two parts. Number one, number two. Number one is you stop thinking everything is so fucking impossible. You give yourself, in fact, I shouldn't even write the word impossible. You give yourself, right, a goal that reaches far beyond your comfort zone. When RB said, I'm going to break that 4 minute mile record, I'm going to run the first mile under 4 minutes, there was literally no evidence for him to do it. There was no evidence he could. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. But he set that goal for himself anyway. And guess what? You know the funny thing about how goal setting works? If he had actually not broken that 4 minute mile, he would have still run a much better time than he was running before that point, regardless. Because that's how goal setting works. You ever heard the term, how's it go? I forget how it goes. Aim for the moon. Oh damn! I just put a white color on the fucking white paper. How hilarious! You ever heard that term? Aim for the moon. And oh shit, that is so big. What is going on right now? Oh, I see. I'm tripping. Ever heard that term? Aim for the moon, but oh, I'm even saying the term incorrectly. Ever heard the term? Aim for the stars, but land on the moon. Right? This being the moon right here. In case that wasn't clear. Aim for the stars, land on the moon. That is to say, if you aim higher than your expectations, or if you make your expectations even more grandiose and glorious than you originally wanted to or you thought was possible, by the end of the day, at the very least, you will find yourself in this other place called the moon, which here represents still a lot further than you expected, because you're out of orbit. The sky is not the limit for you because you're way past the sky. You're at the moon, right? To put it in practical terms, let's say you decide you want a money goal, right? Let's use money because money is quantifiable, so it's easy to measure. Let's say you want to make your first 10K a month, right? I am blessed enough to be one of the people that have figured out how to do that and repeat that success multiple times to this point. I can tell you for a fact, the easiest way to go about doing it from a mental point of view is one, stop thinking about it like, let's figure out how to make 10K a month. Figure out how to make 40K a month. If you fail at that, I promise you'll at least come away with 10K. Because all the things you'll need to do, all the leverage you'll need to build, all the systems you'll need to have in place to make the 40K, right, will be in place and will very naturally, easily make you fail, right, quote unquote, fail, and make you land a 10K. That's how it works. So that's the first thing, right? You need to start setting goals way outside of your comfort zone. The next thing, and this is so important, and this is something that needs to be talked about more. If you want to be like our boy RB, talked about the first thing, go far beyond your comfort zone. Second thing, you want to make sure that you have a strategy. Now, strategy is amazing. Strategy is important, right? Our boy RB used strategy to break that 4 minute mile. Don't forget, up until him, there was no, rest recovery phase for most athletes, right? Rest was talked about, rest and recovery was talked about, but it wasn't seen as important up until him, and it definitely wasn't encouraged before the day of the athletic performance. He was the one that really popularized that entire science of rest and recovery, right? By complete mistake, by the way. It wasn't like he was a revolutionary at the thing or something. He just realized, oh, yo, whenever I rest for whatever reason, after my rest days, I perform even better athletically, right? So shout out to him. That was his winning strategy. That was how he was able to break that record, that 4 minute mile. By the way, I've been realizing I've been writing 4 minutes and not mile, but who cares? You get the point. The strategy, right? Your strategy, whatever that strategy may be for whatever field we're talking about right now, the strategy acts as a bridge of some sort between where you currently are in this moment in time and where you want to be. The strategy is the needle that moves everything forward for you, right? Now, not to say that you are not already who you are or already where you want to be, because in a sense you are, and we'll talk about that more later. But we do again live in a physical reality, right? And in order to affirm your reality and affirm your perception of your reality, you must have a way to prove that. And a strategy is just about the best way to do so. Your strategy and your implementation of your strategy is how you affirm to yourself and to the universe at large that you are indeed who you say you are. That's the point. The work you put in is evidence that you believe in the version of you that you're working towards. Do you get that? I hope that landed. That's important. And that right there is how you get rid of this need for underestimating yourself or asking for permission. Because if you realize that all you need is to get out of your comfort zone, right? Set goals that are far beyond your comfort zone, and you make sure that you do what we talked about previously, right? You create a strategy, then there's no need to ask for permission from anybody else. There's no need to wait for or look for evidence outside of yourself, because all the evidence will come from within, right there. Your strategy. That's the point. Okay? All right. Hope that landed. Hope that makes sense. I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, that is the end of that lesson. Like I said before, it's from my course Self Belief 2.0, and I'm happy you went through the entire thing, and I'm happy you got some amazing value from it. Now, I would highly advise you to please go through it over and over and over and over again. Like I always say, repetition is a law of deep and lasting impression. So the more times you go through it, the more value you can extract from it, and the more stuff you can find in it that you probably didn't even catch the first time around you were hearing it, right? Now, if you want more lessons like that, it's all in, like I said, Self Beliefs 2.0. And for right now, you can actually get the entirety of Self Belief 2.0 for just one single dollar, right? Just $1, and you can get Self Belief 2.0. I've placed the link to that in the description below. All right, so go in there, click on the link and get self belief right now for a single dollar. It is not going to be like that for the longest time ever. I promise you, it is not going to stay like that for a long time. So you might as well go and register for it while you have the ability to for just a single dollar. Until the next time I see you, I'll go ahead and redirect you to this particular video right here that you can watch. There's a lot of value in that as well. See how much you like it, and please begin to practice these things in your life as soon as possible so you can start seeing amazing results. Until next time, though, it's me, Jason, for scientist. With all this information, what you must.